term limits come from. So I'm not a politician. I'm an American who is frustrated, a small business owner who has basically said, you know what, it is time to stand up and restore our country to what I grew up in so that it's not unrecognizable to my children or other people's children. But, Jim McGovern and, people that have been there for 30 plus years, they have millions and millions of dollars at their disposal to silence somebody like me or the general public.
And they could, excuse me for interrupting, they could take the term limit bill, just like they did with healthcare and every other law that they passed, and exempt themselves.
Correct.
So let's say you get into, maybe, whatever, you get into Congress. You'd be subject to the term limits because you're one of the new guys. You'd serve, 2, 3 terms, whatever the law ends up being. But no, somebody like Jim McGovern, he's... I was just going to say that. I didn't want to beat a dead horse grandfathered in. Yeah, he's grandfathered in.
And so, at the end of the day, is everyone going to push on term limits? I think what we really have to do as a society is have a conversation that when we think about billions of dollars spent in all of these elections and stuff, and then we look and say there's 50,000 homeless veterans, or we look out in California and we see 500,000 homeless people, and you look around our country,
largest
Boston,
in the nation, Southern California.
Boston, Worcester, and you say to yourself, how can billions upon billions of dollars be used on election? What happened to the grassroots? Get out there, talk to your constituents, have a compelling argument. What happens now, which is why term limits is becoming such a popular push, is individuals or the next generation, right, our millennials and stuff, they can't take on the machine.
Yes.
They can't raise that money, so the money is shutting them down and stuff, and that's where I got on the term limits is, what? If money's gonna keep buying seats, then the only way we can get a change in our government is to fight for term limits.
Yes.
And, and then at least, let's say it's 8 years for a congressman, and I wanna hold my seat, I've got that arrogance, it's mine. And so, because of the term limits, there's no arrogance here. The next generation gets a shot, or the next individual.
That's what our founding fathers intended.
Correct. And so, the president's 2 terms. I think that Congress should be 4 to 5 terms at max. Senate should be 2 terms. And the other,
that's 12 years for them, sure.
And the other point for me is, I'm running for Congress. So let's say I do my 5 terms. I do not have the right to then come out and run to be the senator. You're done. However you spent your time in DC, whether you were a senator or a congressman, your term is done.
You did your bit for king and country, it's time to go home.
Yep.
Make room for somebody else.
Make room for somebody else.
And the other thing too that happens, you have somebody, well, again, Jim McGovern, because we are in the 2nd district here. When he came in the 70s, different America then.
Yes, it was.
Completely different America now. Now, I'm not going to say that, you can't change with the times. I would never say that. But being out of touch, I think that's a factor. It's kind of like a father and a son, or a grandfather and a grandson. Yes, we can get our values from our elders, but it was a different time, and it was a different generation. Respect that, obviously, but it's a different time now, and it's time for the young kids to take over. And that's one reason why parents let their kids go. It's like, it's your turn now. It's your turn to take care of this.
And remember, go back to 1977 or even 1980. So let's assume, Jim McGovern at that point's a senior in college. And so this is when, Carter was in office, inflation was through the roof.
Sure.
Gas prices, and we're looking, here we are in 2021, potentially heading down the same road.
Yes.
We don't have enough energy.
We're repeating the Carter years, yes.
When my parents bought their house, I was 6 years old, I believe. The interest rate was 19%.
Yes, I remember all of that.
And when we look, if we're honest, we first must admit, we stole the future of the millennials. They have a reason to be pissed. We look at the Gen Zs, and we say, why is this population, these 2 generations, actually listening to the notion of socialism, et cetera, et cetera? You know why they're listening to it? Because we don't want to admit. We did take their futures and we must solve it. And, you know, and then we look at the notion of 17% inflation still climbing. What is that generation gonna do? How do they, can you imagine if my daughter comes out of college at 22, 23 years old, where I was fortunate enough to be able to buy my house at 23, and she stares down a 10, 11% interest rate on a mortgage? What do we do?
And it's out of reach for somebody like myself now. I did own a home. I lost it during the crash. It's out of reach, price-wise, it's out of reach. And if interest rates skyrocket, I mean, I don't think, I'm a much older American now, but I think about my son who's saving money and wants to get in there. He's in his early 20s. I don't want to dash his hopes, but it's not there. It's not going to be there. You can't even like a Levittown style house, a simple 1 bath, 3 bedrooms kind of thing. Like Northborough has an awful lot of those. I grew up in one of those types of Levittown style houses. 300,000, 400,000. My parents bought it for 15 at 5.25% interest. Took them 20, 30 years to pay off even that. But my parents were blue collar and they could afford it. They could do it. Blue collars can't do that now. And again, getting back to the term limits, somebody like McGovern, who was in there back during that horrible time in the 70s, he should know, he should recognize that. We're entering into that, and if he stands up for the supposed poor that he's supposedly championing, he should be the first to say, this bill is going to put us right back to where we were when I first came in here. You want to talk about the time you spent in office, Jim? Take that to the bank. Take that. Your time when you first entered, it's happening now again, and you should use that experience.
Learn from our history.
Right.
The number one thing in education, what do they want to do? They want to strip our history. And this is when we need to pay attention and say to the Gen Zs, the millennials, look at history. Go back to 1977 through the 1984. Look at what happened, because we are heading down that road again. And if we don't pay attention, and so this is going to happen, our millennials or our Gen Zs are going to stare down the same things that our parents stood down, if not worse. And so, I mean, 29 trillion. Now we just passed another 1.2 trillion. So, you know, let's put the math together. We're over 30 trillion.
By the end of next year, yeah, easily.
You know, so I'm looking at it saying, let's be honest, and this is how I believe I'm going to win. We need to be honest and say, and be able to look at our constituents in the face and say, a child, we are spending the future of an unborn child from 15 years in the future. We're talking about my grandchildren, your grandchildren. That's how far we have spent out. So now you're right, when we talk about your son, he's only 2 years older than my daughter. She's 20, I believe he's 22, 23, right there, and stuff. What are they gonna do? And stuff, because we already know we spent the money for their children's futures. And, you know, and that's what got me to stand up and want to run, was recognizing, I don't know what my children's future looks like. I'm going to forego my retirement, and I'm going to go start their lives myself. Go find a 3-family and buy it, so that if all fails in life, we can rent 1 unit and both my children can take 1 floor and start their life.
But unfortunately, though, a lot of parents don't have that income.
And they don't have that ability.
That's unbelievable.
And when I realized that that was my choice, give up my retirement to protect my children's future, and then look at the thousands of families that have come through my care and recognize the damage being done, that's when I said enough is enough, and I'm going to run for office.
Good for you. Jeffrey, shameless advertisement. Give your website, give your information, and...
Yeah. So, you know, my website is jeffreyforcongress.com. That's Jeffrey4Congress.com. I look forward to spending the next year getting to know each and every one of you and give you a reason why I'm running. And I commit to you, I will always offer solutions. I will answer questions, whether comfortable or not. I believe that every politician should have to answer all questions.
Thank you very much, Jeffrey.
Thank you.